On March 4th, a guy named Dennis pulled his F-150 into my bay with a paper bag on the passenger seat. Inside that bag were 2 cans of WD-40, a roll of shop rags, and an expression I can only describe as the face of a man who had figured something out. He had been fighting a brake squeal for 2 weeks, a thin, high-pitched squeak when he eased off at a light, nothing more. The brakes still worked, nothing was grinding. He just wanted the noise to stop. He had watched a few videos, done some reading, and 3 days earlier, he had jacked up the truck in his driveway and sprayed WD-40 directly onto both front rotors. The squeal stopped immediately for about 4 hours. Then it came back twice as loud with a grinding underneath it that had not been there before. He went back out the next morning and gave both rotors another coat. 2 days after that, he was in my bay telling me the pads were shot, the rotors were scored, and the dealer up the road had already written him an estimate for $1,900. He thought WD-40 was the cheap fix. It was the most expensive thing he did all year, and he had done nothing wrong exactly. He had done what most people do. He saw a problem, he grabbed the most familiar product in the garage, and he put it where the noise was coming from. Nobody told him there was one spot on that truck where WD-40 would turn a 2-week annoyance into a nearly $2,000 repair. Nobody told him because most people have no idea the line exists. I have had some version of that conversation more times than I wanted to count over 30 plus years under this lift. The vehicle changes. Sometimes it is a belt, sometimes it is a door seal, sometimes someone hit 3 different spots in the same afternoon. The story always ends the same way. A small noise becomes a large bill because the wrong product went to the wrong place. Today I'm going to cover that spot in detail, why WD-40 destroys it in a way most people do not fully understand until the invoice is written, and 3 other places on your car where the same product turns from an asset into a liability. There are situations where WD-40 genuinely belongs under your hood or inside a door panel, and I will touch on those. But there is one location where a 2-second spray starts a chain of damage. Your wallet will feel for months. By the end of this video, you will know exactly where that spot is, how the damage actually happens inside the component, and what to reach for instead. In each of those situations, 2 of those replacement products cost less than $5. Before we go further, a quick ask. If this channel has ever saved you a shop visit or walked you through something you did not know you could handle yourself, hit the subscribe button right now. My name is Bob Jones. Everything on this channel comes from 4 decades at the lift, not from a press release or a parts deal. If that is the kind of information you want in your feed, subscribe. Now let's go. WD-40 has been in American garages since 1953. The name stands for a water displacement 40th formula, which tells you exactly what it was built to do: push moisture off metal surfaces and leave a light petroleum film behind on hinges, battery terminals, seize fasteners, corroded license plate screws, window tracks, and lock cylinders that have not moved in a decade. It works exactly as advertised. The product itself is fine. The trouble is that petroleum film and what it does in the wrong location. Brake rotors are metal. That is where the thinking breaks down. A brake pad grips a spinning steel rotor through friction, heat, and a mechanism most people have never had explained to them. As the pad works, it transfers a thin, invisible layer of pad compound onto the rotor face with every stop. That transfer layer is what gives you consistent, predictable braking. It builds up gradually and the whole system depends on it. Put any oil-based product on the rotor surface and the pad can no longer form that bond. Friction drops by 60 to 70% within the first few stops after contamination. By the 5th or 6th stop, the pad surface has begun to glaze over from the heat of spinning against a surface it cannot grip. A glazed brake pad does not recover. You can wipe the rotor clean. You can run it through a car wash. It does not matter because the damage happened inside the pad compound during those heat cycles while it was trying to grip a lubricated surface. The pad material altered permanently. It is done. That glazing was the grinding Dennis heard on day 2. The pad had stopped working, and every stop after that was a scored pad dragging across a scored rotor. When both front pads glaze and both rotors get scored, you replace the full front axle pads, rotors, and usually the caliper hardware. On most trucks and SUVs, that is $400 to $600 in parts before labor. Total cost lands between $900 and $1,600 on most vehicles, sometimes more if the contamination reached the caliper slide pins, which it often does because oil wicks along surfaces you cannot see. Dennis's $1,900 estimate was not inflated. The shop was not wrong about what needed replacing. What the shop almost certainly did not explain was what had caused it. Most write that ticket without raising the question because the conversation is uncomfortable and the job pays the same either way. The cause stays unreported. The owner leaves without knowing, and a month later, someone else makes the same mistake. The squeal Dennis was originally chasing almost certainly wasn't a sign anything was seriously broken. Brake, squeal without pedal pulse, without pull, and without any grinding is usually one of 3 things. Light dust on a cold rotor that clears itself up after the first stop of the morning, a wear indicator doing exactly what it was designed to do, or a missing brake shim that clips back into place in about 4 minutes and costs $8. None of those situations require WD-40. None of them require a shop visit if you know what to look at. The shim fix cost $8. The WD-40 fix cost Dennis $1,900. If you know someone who keeps a can of WD-40 near their workbench and has ever heard a brake squeak, send them this video right now. 30 seconds of sharing might save them $1,500. Now let's cover 2 more places where the same product gets people into expensive trouble. The second one catches people off guard. The serpentine belt. It squeals on cold startups or wet mornings, which is common. Someone in the driveway sprays it while the engine is running. The noise stops and they walk back inside thinking the problem is solved. WD-40 is a light petroleum solvent. Rubber is petroleum derived. When the two meet, the solvent begins softening in the belt compound. The belt swells slightly and starts to lose its grip on the pulleys. Slippage follows, and slippage generates heat. Heat accelerates cracking along the ribs on the underside of the belt. A belt that was 3 months from a routine replacement is now 3 days from snapping. A snapped serpentine belt pulls the alternator, power steering pump, and water pump offline simultaneously on most vehicles. When the water pump stops, coolant circulation stops. The engine overheats. On a highway run in summer traffic, how quickly the driver notices depends on conditions, and if it takes long enough, you're looking at a warped cylinder head. That repair starts at $2,000 and climbs from there with no warning before the first number. The right product for a squealing belt is a belt dressing spray, which restores grip without attacking the rubber compound. A can runs about $5 and will outlast a dozen cold weather startups. If the ribs are cracking visibly or you can see any glazed sheen on the rib face, do not bother with dressing. Replace the belt. Serpentine belts run under $50 on most vehicles, and the swap takes about 30 minutes. On a front-wheel drive car with basic hand tools, the third area, rubber O-rings and seals near fluid systems, power steering hose fittings, coolant line connections, valve cover, gasket edges. Petroleum-based products cause rubber to swell in the short term and then harden over weeks. A swollen O-ring might seem to seal better for a while, then it hardens, contracts, and leaks. Coolant failures that go unnoticed produce the same overheating damage described above. For these spots, use a silicone-based spray or a product rated for rubber compatibility. The cost difference at the parts counter is $3 to $4 over WD-40. The difference in what happens to the seal over the following year is substantial. The same logic applies to door seals and weather stripping. WD-40 loosens a stiff seal and feels like it helped. The petroleum base dries the rubber out over repeated applications, and within 1 to 2 seasons, you end up with a seal that cracks and lets water into the interior. Silicone spray does the same loosening job, costs about $6, and does not attack the compound. WD-40 belongs on hinges, lock cylinders, corroded battery terminals, seized fasteners, wheel well bolts, and license plate screws. It does not belong on brake rotors, brake pads, rubber drive belts, rubber O-rings near fluid connections, or weather stripping you want to last. For brake hardware and caliper slide pins, use a silicone-based brake lubricant or a product specifically labeled for brake hardware. These are available at any parts counter for about $8 to $12, and they will not contaminate the friction surfaces the way any oil-based product will. For belt noise, use belt dressing spray if the belt checks out visually. If the ribs are cracking or the belt has any glazed appearance on the rib face, replace it. The belt itself is cheap. What it takes down with it when it snaps is not. For rubber seals, O-rings, and weather stripping, use silicone spray. For hose connections and coolant fittings, use the manufacturer's specified fluid or a product rated for rubber compatibility. If you're looking at a brake squeak right now and deciding what to do, check your pad thickness first. More than 3 millimeters remaining, no grinding, no pull. Look for a missing shim before anything else. If the noise shows up only on the first 1 or 2 stops of the morning and then disappears, that is cold rotor condensation burning off, and it will clear itself. If the pad is down to 3 millimeters or under, replace it. That is a job most home mechanics can finish in about an hour per axle with basic hand tools, and quality pads for most vehicles run $30 to $90. No WD-40 required at any point in that job. Dennis came back about 6 weeks after his brake work. He still had both WD-40 cans. He said he had been thinking about throwing them away and wanted my take on it. I told him to keep them, use them on the seized wheel well bolts, use them on the hinge that has been squeaking on the tailgate. They will work fine there. He just needed to keep them away from anything that spins against something else to bring a 3,000-pound truck to a stop. He laughed about it, said he was going to put a piece of tape on each can that read "not brakes." Seemed like a perfectly fair solution to me. If this video changes how you look at the WD-40 can in your garage, drop a comment below and tell me which part hit home. I read every one of them. Subscribe if you want more of this every week. One video, one topic, no filler. And if you know someone who has been dealing with a brake squeak and reaching for the spray can, share this with them now. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.